Welcome back again to Spotlight, where we feature the University of Central Arkansas's College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. I'm Donna Lampkin Stevens. And joining me today for the first time is my friend Greg Weber, who is Senior Director of Development for the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. So, Greg, welcome.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure. We've got a lot to talk about today, but let's first start with how did you wind up here?
Well, it's interesting. I actually, for a long time in my career, my wife followed me from job to job. And finally, I said to her, I said, you know what, I think that I'm finished doing what I'm currently doing, and it's time for me to follow you.
Okay.
And so she then, after she got past the disbelief, then she finally said, okay, well, how do we do this? So she went through a headhunter and found actually the Arkansas PBS Foundation and visited Arkansas, loved Arkansas, absolutely loved it. And said,
so when was that?
This was in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic getting going. And then so right in that time when it was really tough for everyone, we decided to move to Arkansas. And I have to say, we've loved it. We've absolutely loved it.
And her name is not Weber.
No, it's Marge Betley.
Marge Betley. Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent, excellent. So let's back up. So where did you grow up and what did you study and all those kinds of things?
I grew up in southeastern Indiana, down close to Cincinnati, Ohio. Mm-hmm. Originally, I studied theatrical design, mm-hmm. so I was a set designer and a light designer.
Where'd you go to school?
Ball State mm-hmm. University. Mm-hmm. Yep. Great place. It was an absolute dynamite place to study. And then after that, I actually went to Ohio Northern University to be their events producer and their designer for them, and decided to go back to get my MFA from the University of Missouri, Kansas City in theatrical engineering.
Okay.
So, and from there, I thought that I was going to stay in Lort Theater. And I kid you not, out of the blue, didn't apply for the job at all. The Houston Grand Opera called me and said, we're looking for a producer. Are you interested?
Did you have a background in opera?
Not at all. I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't read music. And initially I said, no thank you. First, it's Texas, so all there is sand down there. I've never been to Texas before that. And secondly,
I see why you're fitting in with Arkansas.
And then so they called me several times and said, you know, we really want you to apply for this job. And then now this was long before all of the rules at the airport. And then I get a FedEx with an airline ticket and a credit card and a hotel reservation that says all we ask is that here's 2 nights, 3 days, a $500 credit card that you can do whatever you want with. We just ask that you come and talk to us for 4 hours. And that's how I got into opera.
Wow.
Really?
So when was that?
That was I interviewed down there in 91. I went down there in 92.
Okay. So you were there for how long?
15 years.
Okay. So you were pretty settled.
Yeah, I have to admit, I found quickly it was the art form I enjoyed the most. I loved producing opera. And we produced internationally. So here's this Midwestern farm boy who, you know, the farthest he traveled from home was Kansas City, is suddenly working in London, Paris, Switzerland, Madrid, doing collaborations in over 40 countries around the world.
Wow.
It was, it was great. It was
so what did Marge do while you were there?
Well,
had you met her?
I hadn't met Marge at the time.
Okay.
Believe it or not, she was down in Houston and left about 4 months before I arrived.
Really?
So we didn't actually meet until I was working as a managing director up in New York at a theater up there, and we met there.
Okay.
That was about like 15 years later.
So was that after? So where did you go from Houston, I guess?
So then from Houston, that's actually then I went to New York, and that's where I met Marge. I went and was managing director of Jiva Theater Center, which I have to say I did some of the most exciting things that I've ever done. We started to celebrate our 30th anniversary, we created a festival of non-professional arts. Rochester, New York is so unique because at the time, there were 2 opera companies, there were 4 different ballet companies, there was about 60 different types of theater companies in town. It was just this central hub of arts excitement. And being an outsider, I said, you guys got to talk about this. We have to do something. And we eventually then created this thing called Theater Rocks, which was a nonprofit that supported and marketed. All we did was teach them how to raise money, and we taught them how to advertise. That was it. We gave them no money for shows and said, you have to survive on your own. And that festival that we started has now become the Rochester Theater Fringe Festival many, many years later.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
really
That's
exciting.
Yeah. So you met Marge, and what was her background?
Her background was actually, she was a dramaturg. Now, long before me, let me tell you, she's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant. So she worked for the NEA. She worked for Opera News. And so she was a funder, not a fundraiser. But also while she was in Minnesota, she started her own little opera company that eventually became the outreach branch of Minnesota Opera. So it's pretty fascinating. But she was at the time a dramaturg and running her own theater festival.
In Rochester.
In Rochester, and that's how we met.
Great, great. So then from there, what?
From there, then, there was an opera impresario. His name's David Gockley. He produced more American opera world premieres than anyone else alive. And just, he's brilliant. And he then went from Houston to San Francisco. And he called me up, and I wish I could have recorded the conversation because he called me up and he said, Greg, he said, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You need to come to San Francisco and help this company. And I said, well, David, I don't think it's an organization I want to, because San Francisco Opera is massive. It's just a massive company. Second largest opera company in the Western Hemisphere. And I said, I just don't think so. And he then went into this description and he said, you do owe us. You owe opera. We took you in. We helped you. We taught you everything. And now when we need you, he said, you can't say no. He said, this is not just about San Francisco Opera. This is about opera in the United States. And you have to come out here and help us.
Quite a sales job.
Oh, I wish I would have recorded it. It almost brought tears to my eyes the way he was going on.
Sure, sure. So you go to San Francisco and...
We were out in San Francisco about 5 years.
Okay.
And then I wanted to get closer to one of my sons who was still living in Indiana. So then I took, and I headed up Tulsa Opera as the general director. And headed that company. Really proud of the work we did. We brought new young artists in. I worked with the composer Tobias Picker. I convinced him to come down to be my artistic director.
Oh.
It was so much fun doing what we did there. We opened up our outreach programs. We started education programs that actually, sadly, in Oklahoma, they were cutting music in all of the elementaries and the middle schools. And so the high schools were losing their conduit for being able to have students come in and be in their choirs. So we went to the schools and said, what do you think would help this? And the schools came and said, we actually need junior high music programs. And the 5 schools stepped up and said, we will work with you. So we created a program called Raise Your Voice. And we literally put music teachers back in the schools to teach choir.
Great.
It was a great program.
Great. And then what?
And then from there, Marge decided she wanted to be closer to the East Coast to her family. She's originally from Delaware. So I took a position with an arts council in Fayetteville, North Carolina, to help run that arts council and run the arts in a community. And then that was the job right before we came here, when I finally said, okay, her mother passed. The things that had her connected, they had a large family farm that they finally decided to let go of, and so the things that had her connected, and then after talking about it, she finally said, I really want to do something where I'm helping an organization and a community.
And she found that at PBS. And so you came along, and then how did you wind up at UCA?
Well, it's kind of funny because I thought that I was going to retire, Donna.
Did you really?
Yeah, I thought I'm going to stay home, I'm going to cook, I'm going to clean. And after about 2 weeks or so, she came in and she said, there's this job over at the University of Central Arkansas. I think you need to apply to it. And I said, honey, I'm really dedicated. I want to stay here. And she said, you're driving me crazy. We just really need to get you out of the house and get you working again. And then I applied at the University of Central Arkansas. Started in the College of Education, and then they eventually moved me to this college.
Which is your bailiwick.
It is. That's where I specialized, was in the arts for 35 years.
So tell me about fundraising. I mean, you had never really, you had not been a development officer, or you had not I guess, technically been a fundraiser. Of course, all these jobs that you had, you were raising money. What did you learn? What about those experiences have set you up to succeed in this role?
Well, it was interesting. When I was in Houston, working for the Houston Grand Opera, I was asked to attend a lunch with Rusty Wortham from the Wortham Foundation. I had no idea why I was asked to go to this lunch. And then when I get there, I see that it's a private lunch with just Rusty, David Gockley, the general director, and myself. And we're riding down the elevator to where the table is set down in the green room. And David says, all I need you to do is talk to him about this project. There was a project called the Multi-Modular Stage that produced opera in a cornfield, in essence. And he said, that's really all I want you to do. And then as we're walking down the hallway, he said, oh, and then ask Rusty to fund the whole thing. Exactly. The look on your face was the look on my face. I thought, ask? I don't ask. I produce. I negotiate with companies on how much they want to invest in our. So that was actually my very, very first ask in 1994. And we get through the whole thing, and Rusty looks at David and says, how much do you need to fund this project? And I'm thinking, well, the monies that we don't currently have is about $500,000. And so David says, well, Greg, how much money do you want? I said, $500,000. And Rusty said, oh, okay, I think we can do that. And then down the hallway afterwards, going down the hallway, David says, why didn't you ask for $1 million?
Oh yeah, because that's not how we think.
It's not. And when you're not a fundraiser, you don't always think, how much do we need, not just for the project, but to keep this going, the longevity, and what's the potential? And from that point forward, I started getting used by development, by David, for hard-to-reach donors.
I see.
So any donor that was not, that had fallen away from the tree, then I would get asked. So did I have formal training? No, never did. I was taken out to form a relationship with someone, get to know them, and then try to bring them back in.
And that's the key to any fundraising, isn't it? Is relationships.
It absolutely is. And it's even, I remember there was someone in Tulsa. We had gotten to know each other over about 2 to 3 years. And then finally she looked at me and she said, you've been taking me to lunch for 3 years and you've never asked me for a dime. What are you doing? And I said, well, do you find that you want to donate? She said, yes, I want to donate to this. I want to give this amount. And to me, that's what fundraising is about. Fundraising is about getting to know someone, finding out what you're passionate about, and just connecting you with those things inside of an organization.
Well, we have plenty in the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. So can you talk about some of the, obviously Wingate is a big deal. Let's start there. Okay. We had a lot of the fundraising was done before you got here, but what role have you played?
The role that I play right now is we're still fundraising for the facility. We're doing things like we're naming the seats. So if you want to put your name permanently on a seat inside of the concert hall or the Black Box Theater, then I'll basically sell the naming rights for that seat. We're also still naming different parts of the facility, and one of the reasons that you name rooms in the facility is not just for legacy for what you're going to do, but it's also about what's important to you and where you want your gift to go. It may be that you're an art lover and you want to expand what the art department's sculpture program could be, and so you want to name the clay room, and you want to, or the kiln room, or you want to purchase a kiln so that the art department can expand. And it's getting and finding people that have that connection and that passion, and trying to get those things together. Now, right now, we're also, because we're going to open the building in January of 2023, we're really ramping up for the opening events. So that's that's the fun.
The building is built. It's going to be built, but we're still raising money. Why?
Well, for two reasons. We're still raising money. Number one, the Wingate Foundation, thankfully, put $19 million to help us jumpstart this. And then we're continuing to fundraise. And the university, the Board of Trustees, we have a great Board of Trustees. Then they voted to give the university, they voted to have bonds put out to help fulfill the rest of the funding of that at almost $25 million. So in essence, our Board of Trustees is our largest donor there. So what I do now is in order to help save the organization money in the long term so we can reinvest into education in the departments, is I try to keep finding monies to take that bond load down annually.
Lowering that, yeah.
We want that bond load down so that the university has more cash resources to be able to invest in our programs.
Sure. So that's a biggie. What are some other, there are 9 other departments, well, I mean, Wingate's going to include art, music, parts of music and parts of theater. So what else, what other projects are you working on?
I'm also working, one that I'm really, really excited about is over in Dr. Tang Duncan's department.
Philosophy
and Religion. And we're working on fundraising for a Lavender Library. And that particular library is gaining a lot of steam, and I'm really excited about that. I don't know of another Lavender Library in this area. We had them in California. We had some on the East Coast. So that particular project that's going to be housed here on campus and hopefully will open in about a year.
So you're raising funds for the actual physical facility?
For the facility and for equipment. So videos, publications, and other things. So that's a really exciting program. That
Do we know where that's going? Has that been decided yet?
It's going in the residential college, so they're going to be housed
in Muse.
In Muse.
Short Denny. Okay. Good.
So it'll be housed there. I'm also working on. I'm excited. I'm working with you and the School of Communication on making certain that our Channel 6 and our media folks are funded. So I'm really excited about that and what that can mean. I think that. In seeing how the media has been under attack and how do we make certain that we prepare those students for the environment that they're going out in. And I have to tell you, Donna, I've talked to many of your former students. You are just a rock star on helping them do that. So
well, we've invested a lot in our any faculty, any department has invested a lot in their students, and after 24 years. You begin to see some of that legacy that you're proud of. So so is it too soon to talk about some of our specifics on that, or?
Well, I don't think so. I always like talking about specifics and bragging about the college
go
I
ahead.
work for. So what we're planning, and people should watch for this in the late winter of 2023, is we're planning a fundraiser to, it'll be basically a poker night, but all of the money that comes in gets donated back to Channel 6 to help us set up a streaming channel, which I'm really, really excited about because it's going to expand the capability of what, and the scope of what the not just the program, but what the college can provide to the community and the statewide reach that we can hit easily. But that's where my son doesn't watch television. He only watches streaming videos and streaming. So it's actually providing to the students the environment that all of their audiences are going towards. So we're going to be looking for people to fund that. If anyone would like to fund that, give me a call or sponsor it. We would love, all of the money comes back to the university. It may be a poker night, but all of these monies come straight back to the university in support of expanding this program.
Great. So we're looking forward to that. So
I'm excited.
So how do you, what makes a good fundraiser?
A great fundraiser, first and foremost, I think has to like people. That's first and foremost. Secondly, they have to be passionate about whatever they're fundraising for. And I think third, you have to be a really good listener. What I always tell people is that we have 2 eyes, we have 2 ears, and 1 mouth. So that's only 20%. So you should only be talking 20% of the table. A great fundraiser is someone who can help someone talk about things in their life, things that are important to them, and then be able to say, you keep coming back to particular books that have been important to you. Have you ever thought about, and would you like to meet some of the people in our creative writing programs or our English department and talk about what they're doing? Maybe you might enjoy supporting this because that's what you always talk about are the books that you're reading.
And they may not even realize that has been their passion.
That's typically, I would say, at least 50 to 60% of the people is that they finally say, in talking about this, you're right, this is really important to me. Or they will have been giving to a particular program for a long time, and then I can sit down with them, or a great fundraiser can sit down with them and they'll start talking about something else, and I'll ask them why. I see that you're funding, over here in political science, but you also you really have. You talked about your child going through Model UN. You talked about them going through debate. Have you ever thought about supporting? Because UCA has these programs that could really use support. We have a great Model UN program here, really great, very competitive nationally.
So, a lot of this was you were used to. You had experience with music and the arts. But what about the other programs and departments within the college? I mean, did you have you just had to learn about political science and
Well, one of the great things about working in the arts, and especially opera and producing world premiere opera, is that you have to know a little bit about a lot
Everything.
of things. You have to know about history,
Yeah.
right? You have to know even political science. A lot of what we were doing in our fundraising, we had to get to know politicians. We had to get to know why they could not support us. Why isn't the NEA giving X amount of money to opera on particular shows? So I had like a sampling of almost every department that I worked with philosophy and religion. A lot of that comes into play inside of opera or music or theater. Because who was supporting, who created most of the original music from years ago? It were the churches, and then why were they creating it? And but even the School of Communication, we had to do a lot of marketing, advertising. We had to take our talent and get them ready to go on air. We had to, we call those people handlers. We had to be handlers to make certain that our talent was prepared to be able to be media spokespeople for us. So I felt pretty confident. Actually, I started in the College of Education, and that's the one that I felt I know nothing about.
So how long were you there?
Almost a year, not quite a year. Yeah.
So how did you do that?
I literally I had to go
Just
in.
had try to
and
learn everything that as fast as you can.
Oh, I couldn't. That College of Education I discovered was so complex.
Yeah.
On the rules and policies that
Yeah.
they have to teach, that they have to prepare our teachers for.
Yeah.
But after hearing and learning all of this, I would ask people to just send me stuff and I would read. So I would go home at night and I would read any of the articles that the faculty would publish. I would want to read because I had to figure out so much from the zero, from ground zero, to be able to just communicate with them on. I thought, how am I going to ever raise money if I don't understand what they're doing?
Sure.
And I won't deny, I fell in love with the College of Education.
They're neat. Yeah. Yeah.
They did.
They're neat.
Dean Grove Scott, I think, is just a rock star for the university. I really enjoy working with her.
But when our position opened, you just couldn't turn it down, right?
There's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of, and I knew that because I always look for a challenge. What is the hurdle? The hurdle isn't raising money for the arts, right? The hurdle is, how do I fundraise for such a broad, diverse college and stay focused? I had always only had one central focus in fundraising, and this time now
that's interesting. Yeah.
there's a multiplicity of items to fundraise, and how do you pair through a portfolio of potential donors to make certain that you can find funding streams so that all of our departments have monies to make certain that we can deliver a high quality product to our students.
So how, in your outreach, do you reach out to alums, faculty, department chairs? What's your, how do you actually do it? What's your day-to-day like?
It can vary sometimes. There are sometimes I'll feel like an insurance salesman because I just kind of think, you know what, I have to find new people that I can talk to. So I'll go through, we have a database of about 90,000 names. I'll go through the database and I'll start looking for particular types of alumni. I'll start there.
You can search. It's searchable database.
I can search the database. I can pair. I can go through and look for, if I want to go from when someone graduated to what college they graduated to even what events and activities they were involved in. So if I'm fundraising for you, then I would go through and look for School of Communication graduates. If I'm specifically going for journalism, then I'll look at journalism. And then literally I'll just pick up the phone and say, hi, I'm Greg Weber. I'm with the University of Central Arkansas. just wondering how your day's going, and if you have 5 minutes to learn about what's going on in the journalism department. Or if you'd like, I'll arrange a meeting with you and either the director of the school or with one of the departments. You know, did you have a favorite faculty member you'd like to talk to? And sometimes they'll say, oh my gosh, you know who I'd like to talk to. And then really and truly, all I do is set it up and I go along and I buy them lunch or coffee and I get those two people talking. That is, the faculty members are the best salespeople that we have to represent what we do.
Yeah, yeah. So who, can you mention a few names who've been good to go out with, to meet with alums?
Well, Dean Williams has gone out with me. That's been fabulous. Dr. Seymour has gone out. Dr. Plate has gone out.
From music.
Dr. Duncan has gone out. Vicki Grove Scott, the dean over in College of Education, has gone out to work with me. And then some of them are just, we meet in a particular, at an event or something, and I'll say, oh, you know what, can you come over and talk to this person I just met about the program? So some of them will be very informal. I think that my work is something that it's not that I think about it all the time, but because I want to connect people with what's important.
You're really good at this.
So,
I mean, you're a natural at it. So do you find that, like, what age alums do you start reaching out to? Do you reach out to the graduates of 2020 already?
Well, and please keep in mind that I fundraised in nonprofits, and I'm very new, so I'm very green in fundraising for a university and academia. So to me, anyone can be a possible funder.
Sure.
So I'm not afraid to, I mean, today at lunch I'll be meeting with a young lady that's 28 years old, but she's bright, she's got a great future coming, she loves UCA, so even though she's 28 and she may be at a position in her life that she's not financially capable of supporting us, it's still someone you want to stay connected to.
Absolutely.
Because as you said
you're playing
earlier,
the long game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't, if she doesn't donate for 5 years until she gets promoted, I'm fine with that. But what I do want her to do is that she's first and foremost, she does have a passion for her university. She's very grateful for the professors and the things that allowed her and helped her to be successful and to expand her horizon. So I want to make certain that she knows that we are proud of her, that she's gone out and done that, and keep her connected. Because eventually, if you can touch them, they will come home.
Yeah.
I believe that.
So what are some challenges besides...
Well, as I said earlier, this whole academic experience is new to me. So therefore, in this part, I really am learning on the fly, because there are different ways to engage your alumni. And a big challenge is I have to get to know not just the programs we have today, but the programs we had 15, 20 years ago, and get to know the history of the university. So I have to continue. But what's fun is that many of those donors will share with me their history, and that's actually one of the best connecting points, is to ask them about their experience at UCA. I think a challenge is also that people's perception is that the university gets loads and loads of money from federal and state government, which is just not true. We are supported by the state, but we are not supported at the levels that we were 40 and 50 years ago. And it's letting them know that internal operations inside the departments really need support if they want to keep some of those events, some of those activities that help them develop as leaders, and we need to fund those. And I think a lot of people also really truly believe that they don't have the finances for it. I think that they don't. What I try to do is, if I'm talking to someone who says, I just don't have $25,000, Greg, to start a scholarship, what I remind them of is that they actually, if they're an older person, they have an estate. They have a legacy that they can easily pass on to the university, and they can then create something in their name that people will never, ever forget them.
And so, but is there such a thing as a no gift is too small? Right?
Oh,
Talk
no.
about that. Talk about that.
No, a lot of people believe that they have to give $1,000 or $20,000. Many of the programs that we have, let's I'm going to go back to the Model UN. The Model UN, we only need about $7,000 a year. So if you start looking at that, if we can get 100 people giving $20, suddenly we're at $2,000 of the monies that they need. That's enough money now for this great team to be able to go out and compete. People believe that, in the art department we need a kiln. No, it's not always the kiln that we need. Sometimes we just need the tripod to be able to put the artwork on, which is only $700 or $800. So it's not the big gifts that are what's making the university work. It's many times the small gifts. We love the big gifts. I'm always happy to talk about them. But that $20 is important.
But people shouldn't feel like that they can't give because they shouldn't give because they don't have a big gift number, right?
That's correct.
So we want more givers who maybe can give at smaller amounts. In addition to the big gifts.
You're right, because it adds up.
It
adds up. As my father used to say, don't look at the strand of straw in the field, because once you put all of those together, suddenly you have a bale.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what the small donor does for us, is it enables and empowers us to build a foundation of giving that can support many, many of these smaller events and activities on campus.
That's good. I think people need to be reminded of that sometimes. We'll have you back in the spring to talk about Day of Giving. We've been very successful the last several years, and so we'll come back and talk about that then.
Oh, that'll be fun. I'll enjoy that.
Good. Well, we'll be checking in with you a lot with Wingate and our poker nights. So, Greg, keep us on your calendar.
We will. And remember, this poker night is the very first type of event like this on campus. So I'm just excited that, I get to work with people like you that come up with these exciting ideas.
Well, we appreciate you. Join us again next time for Spotlight.